All right, all right, all right. We are back. When I say we are, I mean hashtag paid. And when I say back, I mean back with another weekly marketing webinar. Now, these are 20-minute conversations that our team puts together, our marketing team puts together every week on Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern or wherever else you are in the world. And the goal is not to take up too much time, but instead, in the 20-minute conversation, be able to inspire or educate briefly so that either the rest of your week or the rest of your day, or when you're putting together a brief or something for your marketing team, maybe you're a little bit more informed, or maybe there's a way of thinking that's a little bit different. Today, and I think it's great timing that we're talking about this. We're talking about back to school campaigns. We're talking about insights related to it, what we've learned, what we've seen. And when I say what we've seen, it's more so what our measurement and our insights team has seen, which, again, their job day in, day out is they're looking at trends, they're looking at data, they're putting together thought leadership, they're actually guiding a lot of the strategy that we put forth at hashtag paid. And so I'm really excited to have Sophia here with us, who leads our measurement and insights team at hashtag paid. Sophia, thank you for jumping in. And why don't you share in like 30 seconds just a brief background and who you are?
Might take a little bit more than 30 seconds,
Sure.
but that's okay.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
As you introduced me, my name is Sophia. I consider myself a primary research professional, and I started my career actually in the somewhat of the world or a parallel world of social media. I started on the agency side at Edelman Canada, where I worked on the primary and secondary research team, and we did a lot of social listening work and looking at different public polling on different projects that we were working on with them. Uh, Before joining Paid, though, I was working at an agency called Dig Insights that was focused more on consumer market research. So I led a team as a director, working on projects that spanned across different verticals. So working in the retail space, financial sector, and even like regulated categories like cannabis. But we designed a lot of custom studies. So those studies focused on brand tracking. They could be looking at optimizations for pricing and shelf. But we also did a lot of creative ad testing, which led me to my role today. So today as Danny mentioned, lead the measurement and insights team at hashtag paid. And our mission for our team is really to design programs that can help brands measure the impact of the campaigns they run with us. And exploring beyond impact, we really want to deep dive and understand in our campaigns what is working well, what isn't working well. How can we take those findings to optimize for future flights of this campaign or for future campaigns they run with us? So, looking at insights at a category level, we've developed a lot of norms. So, I'm glad to start sharing some of those insights that retain to back to school. Yeah.
So why don't we start on the most obvious question, which is what has changed when it comes to thinking about back to school and back to school campaigns?
Yeah, great question. Great way to lay that foundation. I think in the last couple of years, when we look back to school has changed significantly, and that's because of some social economic factors. I think the most obvious one is, COVID-19. The pandemic has really impacted some like healthcare environments, our socioeconomic buying behavior as well for shoppers who are, parents as well as caregivers and even students when it comes to this season. So looking back, I think it really began in 2020, where we saw, parents and students have to make this shift of learning in a more remote environment. The pandemic caused parents to also be educators for their kids. And as a result, we saw changes in what people were buying and where they were buying. So, an example of that is we saw a bigger share of wallet transfer to categories like tech and electronics. And that trend continued on post pandemic into 2021 and 2022. And even this year, we expect that that category will gain a bigger share of shoppers' wallets. That being said, I think back to school has returned to somewhat of a normal environment. Students are going back to class, and we've seen that in Canada, in the US, but there's still lingering effects of the pandemic that stem to how shoppers are going back to going back to school shopping this season. The most, I think, top of mind for consumers this season is the economic impact of inflation. It's really changing how consumers are shopping. And what consumers are saying is they're thinking a little bit more critically this season about how they're shopping. That said, I think parents are saying that they're still willing to splurge. But what is really in the mindset of the consumer this season in particular is making their dollar stretch a little bit further. So that's something we just have to keep in mind when we're developing campaigns and strategies to speak to consumers.
You spoke about a couple and really interesting but really important trends and movements that we've noticed over the past couple of years. Do you have stats to add color to these trends that you've been talking about?
Yeah, for sure. I think both us and we have like different industry stats as well to add color for these trends. But the insights that I really want to highlight are maybe some of the differences that we've seen from this year compared to last year. So want to focus on, when people are shopping, where people are shopping, and how do we communicate to customers during this time. So when it comes to when people are shopping, we actually saw shopping occur a little bit earlier this season compared to last year and the previous years. And from different annual trackers that are reported by industry leaders, such as like the National Retail Federation and Deloitte, we actually see like 50% of shoppers starting their shopping list as early as late June. So as soon as, last year had ended, they're starting to begin to make their shopping list. And a bigger proportion, so 60% of shoppers are saying that they're going to finish their shopping by late July. We still want to, obviously validate that with stats that are still coming out, but these are claimed behaviors. And this is a slight difference from what we've seen last year. So in the last couple of years, we've really seen historically that period of shopping peak between late June and early July. So that being said, shopping has happened a little bit earlier, but I don't think back to school shopping has ended just yet. There's still an opportunity to reach consumers. And this is coming from information from the National Retail Federation. We see 10% of consumers still waiting to start shopping until classes start. And the biggest category that people are ending off the season with is school supplies. So still an opportunity to reach consumers, even though we're in that first week of September. But when it comes to a second stat that I want to highlight, we want to focus on where people are shopping because it has slightly changed a little over the last couple of years. So one stat we found was 80% of consumers are actually going to mass merchandisers this year. It's still staying consistent over the last couple of years. Mass merchandisers are top of mind for retailers, but what is really driving that mindset for consumers is that mentality of seeking for deals. They're wanting to go to mass merchandisers a little bit earlier this year, just so they don't miss out. But online channels still play a significant role. We saw that really heighten during the pandemic, obviously for restriction reasons, but we see that 60% of consumers are still using online platforms this season to go about their shopping needs. What is a little bit different and what I spoke to is that consumers are a little bit more critical, right? They're looking at different factors when it comes to online retailers, things like return policies, lower thresholds for free shipping are things or criteria that people are looking for to make the decision to purchase online versus purchase in store. And then the last point I want to talk about, still relating back to online shopping, is the impact of digital platforms. The way that we see digital platforms playing a role in the consumer journey is a little bit earlier in that consumer pathway than before. So we see data that shows that consumers are using social media, for example, more so in that ideation process. So introducing ideas of where to shop, what to buy. Almost 60% of consumers are saying that they're using social media to look for deals. 4 in 10 consumers are saying they're using social media to look at reviews and recommendations even before going to point of sale. So social media is playing a really big role this season earlier on in that shopper journey. And this type of conclusion, this type of sentiment is also shared with different industry leaders. I see I think the Pew Institute came out with a report that looks at different cohorts of shoppers. So when we look at parents, for example, parents themselves, like 75% of them are saying they use social media for ideas. Again, ideas around what outfits to buy, what type of meals to buy, all related to their shopping habits this season. And even students themselves, so the younger cohort, the Gen Zs of the world, they're using like TikToks and Snapchat to really understand and get inspired of what to buy this season. So I think social media is a great touch point. You and I both in the creator marketing landscape world, we want to understand how do we reach consumers using social media. And for us in particular on the Measurement Insights team, we want to go a little bit deeper. We want to understand what elements of creator posts really connect to consumers during this back to school shopping season. So those are some of those insights that we've done, and we've done a little bit more research on.
Data doesn't lie. Well, hopefully data doesn't lie. There is a lot of data. I think the thing that I was smiling about is you talked about the 10% of shoppers and students that still, even once classes have started, that was always me. Like, there is no way I was planning in June for any type of year. It does not matter. Even when I was in grade school, my parents would help me buy supplies. No chance. So like, I don't know who those 60% of shoppers are. I'm definitely in that 10%, but thanks for sharing that. Because again, to your point, there's different cohorts and it's depending on who you're targeting, why you're targeting, and what that space is, which is really important. You spoke about, again, like the behavior with parents and students. We saw a couple stats. Because you are deep in measurement and insights, have you found any research that speaks to how parents and students are thinking about like 2023 back to school?
For sure. I think I can put it definitely in the lens of what we've seen with what works well with creator marketing. So in the last 5 years, specifically, #Paid has collected a lot of data around the campaigns that we run. We do campaigns across different categories, across different verticals, even different occasions like back to school. And we've done that through our proprietary brand lift study that we run for some of the campaigns that we've done through the years. And what we've done is our hypothesis, and what we want to do is test our hypothesis of when it comes to content that connects with parents and students when it comes to back to school. So our hypothesis for that is that people are really in tune to content from family and friends. They're also in tune to listen to content from parent peers. And why is that? They're looking at information that they can trust. These people, like family, friends, parent peers, are experiencing some of the same challenges that parents or students are facing today. So to test our hypothesis, what we did is we did a meta-analysis of all our back to school programs across a couple of years. And through that meta-analysis, we actually surveyed 1,200 respondents. And we found that the key information is content or creator content that is reliable and credible is the best at driving sales results for our brands. And how we came up with that conclusion was through an analysis called a driver's analysis. So it's looking at relationships, and this is very technical, but it's looking at relationships between two variables. And the variables of interest for us were variables like content or campaign attributes. How well did that content inform or communicate authenticity? Was it credible? Did it share information to the audience? And then the second attribute that we're looking at relationships with is the outcome of the campaign. Was the campaign or content able to drive brand familiarity? Was it able to boost affinity? Did it drive some bottom funnel metrics, which brands are really in tune to? Like, is it able to drive consideration and purchase behavior? What we found through that driver's analysis is that there is a very strong positive correlation between attributes like relatability. So relatability and driving consideration, and then credibility and driving purchase intent. And what that means is that when content is relatable and credible, these viewers are more likely to go to store, go online to purchase your products. And I think that that finding is really, really critical and it validates some of the obviously the hypothesis that we have, but it's proof of concept. It shows that, you know, these strategies of developing more storylines that are credible and relatable is really going to make an impact for consumers. And for us, it's taking that insight. We work very collaboratively with our strategy team to develop strategies that touch on those two key attributes during back to school. So I would say, to answer your question, parents and students these days, when it comes to social media content, especially creator content, we want to make sure that we're really attuning to those attributes and evoking those emotions with our viewers and with our consumers.
All right, well, we've talked stats and measurement. I think it's time for a couple anecdotes. You talked about, you know, your team works alongside with the strategy team to come up with these strategies that focus and have a lens on relatability and credibility. Can you share an example of a relatable strategy and then an example of a credible strategy as it relates to this back to school campaign?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm going to go back to stats because that's my innate nature. But some key findings that we found from our meta-analysis is that, you know, parents in particular are liking content that has a relatable story. And beyond that, they're showing the content in a more positive light. And they want to see content that makes them smile. It's difficult, especially in this economy, this pressure that we face in the economy with inflation. You know, price of goods are increasing. We have less disposable income, but we want to acknowledge those challenges, right? Those are real things that consumers face, but maybe we want to shed a more positive light on that. So one strategy, you know, it might be for a particular category, but one strategy we can take is we want to highlight, you know, the thrill parents get when they get a deal, the thrill of a hunt when they're going back to school shopping. So that's one strategy we can communicate to parents, but we can also take that strategy and relate it to students because they're also facing those same economic pressures. And one way we can communicate with them is by using student creators to speak to their peers and really highlight, you know, some of those examples of getting a deal and they just can't look away. In previous years, we've faced similar economic pressures before, so it's not anything net new, I would say. But what we've done, an example of how we found success, was we worked with a discount retailer actually last season. And our strategy and approach in emulating relatability was to partner with parent creators to highlight some brand name products that they could actually find at this discount retailer, but at a much affordable price. And the end result of that is we completed a brand lift study post content creation. We saw that we really validated that strategy was able to grab attention from consumers. So people were looking much more at this type of content. We also found through open-ended verbatims that was the key message that was being pulled through. And to put a cherry on top of those results, we actually saw that visitation intent for this retailer was actually double the norm of what we see in the category during that time. So really showcasing that, you know, there was success in incorporating some sort of relatability with challenges consumers are facing this season into the strategies of the campaigns that we run. And that was for relatability, but in terms of credibility, I think one way or one insight we found is that credibility really emulates through more information. So parents themselves want to learn something new through the content that they see. You can do that directly by with creator content by focusing on the value proposition of the products or, you know, the services that they partner with. More indirectly, you can highlight, you know, this through different events or different realities that parents can relate to in the back to school season. One campaign we ran for a CPG client was looking at the realities or difficulties that they face when coming up with different meal ideas. For back to school, you have picky eaters. It's like you have to wake up in the morning and make something quick and easy, right? Those are realities that parents all share during this time of year. So we actually created a strategy to focus on recipe style content. That recipe style content not only promoted the brand, but also encouraged engagement through the brand, but also shared information, shared ideas for parents to be inspired by this type of content. And it added credibility because we could see at the end of the survey, or the end of the campaign, we tested, again, a brand lift study, and we could see perceptions of quality actually increase. So we saw that, that information, by being shared through a recipe style content, was able to lift perceptions positively for the brand and really make an impact for the brand and drive, end goals of people actually going to store and purchasing this product. So just some examples. I know they're very specific maybe for different types of categories, but a way to really evoke more of that relatability, credibility in that information through creator content.
The thing that I enjoyed the most, again, be biased, is like love the competition element, love the viral potential when it comes to relatability of who's got the greatest deal. Like between these bunch of people, who's going to get the greatest deal? Like that. So that idea, I think, can be applied to many different retailers, many different companies. Again, if you don't want to be seen as someone with a discount, then fine, maybe not for you. But that was the one thing that stuck into my mind after all the strategies that you spoke about. We are at 121 on the Eastern side. Sophia, this was data filled. This was strategy filled. This was super insightful. Thank you for spending the time with us, because I think everyone here really did take away actionable ideas or take away an insight that they can use to drive their strategy, and also understand maybe what's happening this year to then inform and put it in the back pocket for next year. So exactly. Genuinely, thank you very much for spending the time here and just being so candid about all this.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And yeah, thanks, Danny, for inviting me.
Of course. So as always, we run these weekly. This was, Sophia, we talked about back to school insights. Next week, we're going a little bit different. We are talking with a guy named Josh Kaplan, who is the CEO of a company called Smooth Media. Smooth Media helps some of the biggest creators like Colin and Samir, Rod Hill, Miss Excel, and many others build their media companies, so their newsletters, their podcasts. And he has a really interesting idea on how brands can get involved with creators, but maybe not through typical social media, but getting involved with their newsletters. Really interesting opportunity. He's one of the smartest minds I've come across in the media space. But anyway, enough from me. Sophia, thanks so much. For everyone, hopefully we'll see you next Wednesday at 1 p.m. and have a great rest of the week.
Awesome. Bye.
See you soon.